Welcome back into HQ Spotlight. NFL free agency, just about a month away. I can't do math because February is weird. Are we like 28-day February or 29-day?
I think it's 28, but I don't know either.
So I can't say like, oh, it's a month and 2 days away. It's March 12th. However long that is away from February 10th.
About a month.
We're going to go through some best bets here because there's a lot of notable free agents out there. Sorry to get stuck on my weird math with the calendar here. Let's welcome in Ryan Wilson and Emory Hunt. First guy we're going to talk about, though, not a free agent yet, not technically sure what's going to happen to him, but our NFL insider Jonathan Jones says that Aaron Rodgers is not expected to be a member of the Jets come March 12th, potentially retire at 41 years old. Does he go to another team? Emory, we'll start with you here. What do you think Aaron Rodgers should do?
I hate to split the baby right down the middle and say both. I could see him retiring, but I can also see him ended up in one of these situations where a team in the draft is outside of picking one of the top two guys, and someone like the Raiders. I could see him ended up out there in Las Vegas playing under Tom Brady, and that should be a weird scenario, but otherwise I could see him retiring for sure.
No, I think Emery's right. And I think that the Raiders would be weird because of Tom Brady, right? And there's not much age difference between Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if that dynamic would work. But a year ago, what happened with the Raiders? They missed out on the first six quarterbacks because they picked 13th. Those top six went in the top 12, and they took Brock Bowers, which ended up being the best possible best case scenario for them. So I would lean probably 75%, 25% that Aaron Rodgers retires. And if I had to guess, he'll probably dip his toe into the old media pool. And I'm sure he'll be paid quite well to do that. And it'll take much fewer hits. That said, he does have a chip on his shoulder, and he has since he was drafted back in 2005, and he may want to prove his doubters wrong in much the same way Kirk Cousins does coming off that Achilles injury. So I'm leaning retirement, but never say never with Aaron Rodgers.
Look, it is curious. We saw Tom Brady retire, unretire, then retire again. Sometimes these quarterbacks, they just have a couple more years in them. We're going to have to see. Somebody who is not retiring, at least by no means do we expect this, Sam Darnold. We saw what he did with the Vikings during the regular season. It was phenomenal. Last two games, getting into the postseason. Some stuff you can't forget there. Ryan, where do you think Sam Darnold should end up?
I mean, the Vikings make the most sense, and Kevin O'Connell said as much. But if we're going to think outside of the box here, with Cooper Kupp apparently on his way out in Los Angeles, and I know Matthew Stafford reportedly appears to be coming back at least for one more year, why not bring Sam Darnold back to L.A.? He played at USC. Sean McVay coached Kevin O'Connell. Sean McVay, just like KOC, can get the most out of a young quarterback. And Darnold is still young, and he played at such a high level last year for Minnesota. I like the idea of him being the long-term answer for the Rams. This, of course, means that Matthew Stafford moves on after this season, but we don't know if that's going to be the case. But I think if you bring him out there to L.A., he and Sean McVay could do some of the same things that Stafford did, and maybe some of the same things we saw Jared Goff do towards the end of his career in L.A. before he was traded to Detroit.
That does make a lot of sense, Ryan. I'm going to stay with Minnesota because I feel like this is one of those situations where it works perfectly for both sides. One, Sam Darnold was a top pick in the NFL draft, so he has a lot of good financial stability to stand up on, so he's not really chasing the bag. And second, he had a lot of success with Kevin O'Connell, and he knows the situation. And thirdly, from the Vikings' perspective, there's no rush to put J.J. McCarthy out there. He was, 20, 21 when he was drafted? So you still have some leeway to get him back acclimated, full speed, coming off that injury. So there's no rush to put him out there. You can get a year with Sam Darnold, running back a little bit more on a cheaper deal, because I do feel like he's in the best spot for him in his career.
Let's go to the Steelers right now. You got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields who are there on these deals. And it is interesting. Both of you say that Russell Wilson should stay with the Steelers, but difference of opinion about Justin Fields. Emory, I'll start with you on this one. Why should Wilson stay with the Steelers, and where do you think Justin Fields should land?
No, I think Wilson should go to the Rams, actually. I like him in L.A. with the veteran type of the same case Ryan made for Sam Darnold to go to the Rams. I like for Russell Wilson to go to Los Angeles and work with Sean McVay. But for Justin Fields, I like him to stay with Pittsburgh because, one, he's younger. Two, he's still coachable in terms of being able to mold his skill set. Three, he's he's cheaper, put it that way, but he's also more explosive as a talent. He can run. He can do a lot of the same things Russell Wilson can do, but younger, faster, more explosive. And also, we know the issue with Pittsburgh is the fact that they didn't have weapons at receiver for either one of these quarterbacks. You got to continue to build that. And I think that's why you roll with Justin Fields. And based on what we're hearing so far, the team kind of rocks with Fields more so than Wilson.
Yeah, as a Steelers fan, we'll see. Look, neither one of these guys blow my hair back. And the reality is this. As a Steelers fan, I'm going to celebrate the Eagles' Super Bowl victory because Kenny Pickett got on the field, so that's a win for me. As for the long-term quarterback situation in Pittsburgh, I'm leaning towards Russ, and Emory laid out the reasons why he could go with either one of those guys. And Justin Fields was 4-2 last year before Russ came in and was red hot. And when George Pickens doesn't play, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is because you don't have receivers. So if you roll with Russ, that's with the understanding that you're not going to be able to draft a quarterback because you pick too low every single year because Mike Tomlin is such a good coach. But you have to surround him with playmakers. Whether that means trading George Pickens and finding answers at wide receiver with another 2 or 3 players, that has to be done because you're not going to win football games playing the way they did last year when your best player in George Pickens isn't on the field. So I hesitantly go with Russ Wilson with the understanding that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make this team a legit team capable of winning in January.
Ryan, real quick follow here. What about rolling with Russ and the Raiders? I had not given this much thought. Teaming him back up with Pete Carroll, but right before Danny Cannell walked out of the studio, you said, I think he should go to the Raiders. What do you think about that?
I don't hate it. I'm curious, and I would imagine I know the answer, but Justin Fields probably wants a chance to start. He was a great teammate last year when he had to sort of, after 6 games, go to the bench and watch Russ Wilson play. They're not going to be in a situation, the Raiders, I don't think, to draft a quarterback because there'll only be 2 of these guys getting drafted unless they trade up. And if that's the case and you feel good about what Justin Fields can bring you, and Pete Carroll's going to be the new coach, and I think there's going to be a lot of excitement around that, and Tom Brady will be there. I don't hate it. Aiden O'Connell's not the long-term answer. We know that. And it doesn't matter if you have 21 Hall of Famers on your roster. If you don't have a quarterback, at the end of the day, you're not going to win any playoff games. So I'm fine taking a shot on Justin Fields, giving him an opportunity, and seeing where it goes from there.
A lot of notable wide receivers, not a lot, but a decent amount here. We're going to start with T. Higgins, currently with the Bengals, and he said last week, obviously, we want to build something here in Cincy. It basically said, look, it's not in my hands right now. If I got to go to another team, so be it. Emory, what is the best fit for T. Higgins?
Washington. And the reason why I emphatically say Washington is that they were flirting around other receivers last offseason, so you know they're going to be in the market this year and tossing the bag at a lot of these top quality wideouts that's going to be on the market. And so T. Higgins, next to Terry McLaurin, gives Jaden Daniels a bona fide number one, a guy that can go win above the rim, take the roof off the coverage on the back end, and now you allow McLaurin to work underneath. And so I feel like Washington is going to be a prime spot for one of these top wideouts, and I think Higgins would make the perfect fit for Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, no, Washington feels like a great fit. I can't push back too hard on that. But at the end of the day, Emory, we'll see if the old Benjamins don't do a little talking and determine where some of these players end up. And by that, I mean the New England Patriots have more money than God can count, and they're going to be in the market for a wide receiver. And if they're not, they should be relegated to the UFL because they desperately need to help Drake May out. And if they take someone like T. Higgins and sign him in free agency with all that money they have, then they can draft finally an offensive tackle, one of those top 5 picks they've had forever, and help Drake May out. You see the theme here, helping Drake May out, because he had to do a lot with the little last year, took a ton of hits. They didn't draft Ladd McConkey. I've been talking about that since the actual draft last year, Amanda, so they got to make up for it now by getting T. Higgins.
Those 2 teams, not necessarily the Patriots, but the Commanders and the next 2 teams we're going to talk about, all did very well, and they all need help when it comes to pass catchers and some weapons on offense here. So Chris Godwin, he's up for grabs. He did get hurt in Week 7, had his ankle dislocated, had to undergo surgery here. Ryan, I want to start with you. Another team with a good quarterback that needs some help.
Yeah, I like the idea of Chris Godwin going to the Broncos and Sean Payton and Bo Nix. He's not a tight end, but he plays a lot in the slot. He mans the middle of the field, and that could be Bo Nix's best friend. The tight end situation is one where they could draft one if they wanted to in the draft here in a few months. But I think Chris Godwin comes in right away. Cortland Sutton's contract's not up till after the 2025 season. You have Marvin Mims. You have Devon Bailey, who had a great rookie season. So you have some pieces around Bo Nix. But I think the more help you get him in the middle of the field, the more consistent he's going to be. He struggled early and then got hot as the season progressed, and that had a lot to do with Bo Nix, but also a lot to do with Sean Payton. And Chris Godwin feels like a veteran presence that makes a ton of sense in that offense.
Speaking of veteran presence, I like him in Baltimore as that final piece of their receiving core, working in the middle of the field, being Mr. Third Down, being Mr. Chain Mover for Lamar Jackson, and really would open things up on the perimeter for guys like Rashad Bateman or Zay Flowers, because we know the middle of the field right now is owned by Isaiah Likely and also Mark Andrews. Godwin, to me, feels like a Baltimore-type Raven selection or acquisition, so I like him going to Baltimore.
One more wide receiver we're going to take a look at here, Amari Cooper. Rob, I'm going to start with you because basically, looking at our rundown, you kind of think he could go anywhere and be a good fit. You got 3 teams, is that right?
I do, and I noticed that my notes, Amanda, that I sent that to James, and I forgot to take out the team that I wanted to mention, which are the actual Jets. But right, he could go back to the Raiders, the teams that drafted him. They need wide receiver help. I put the Bears on there because the Bears might need some help if they move on from Keenan Allen. But I set it on the Jets because the Jets have to help out Garrett Wilson. We just figured out they don't have a quarterback, so they're going to sort that out as well. Maybe they do that in the draft, and if that's the case, they won't be able to draft a Tedrow McMillan out of Arizona, in which case you can get an Amari Cooper who still has a ton left in the tank. Didn't get to showcase that in part because of injury in Buffalo, but I think in a situation like that, he could be showcased and be utilized often and also help Garrett Wilson, who was extremely frustrated last year and pretty much since he arrived in New York. He needs help, and I think Amari Cooper gives you that.
I like the veteran presence part of Amari Cooper helping out a young quarterback in New York, i.e. the Giants. I feel like if the Giants are going to draft a young quarterback, bring in someone that can be his safety blanket, his safety valve. Otherwise, you have your deep ball threat, your go-getter, your explosive player in Malik Neighbors. You also have some Wan'Dale Robinsons, your Darius Slaytons, and those guys, Jalen Hyatt. But you need a veteran presence that can help galvanize that unit, but also help bring a quarterback along slowly. And Amari Cooper would make sense for whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders.
I was thinking about the Giants last night and Saquon. Congratulations, Saquon, though, ending up in a much better spot. Because the Giants, they need help up and down the field and across their board. Guys, we appreciate it here. Look, Chris, yesterday people were saying, we're sad the NFL season's done. It's not. It's never done, right?
365.
365, just in 8 days. Those teams can start handing out those franchise tags. The combine begins at the end of this month.
That's 2 weeks from today it begins.
Don't make me do the math, but yeah, that is a little bit easier. 14 days away from now. And the new league year free agency, that kicks off on March 12th.